Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Afzal Qadir, Assistant Professor, Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus. We are going to record the series of ophthalmology different topics that we will discuss step by step. As initial recording of this presentation will be the evaluation of squint, and then we will come for further examination with the different topics in related to ophthalmology and refraction, which will be helpful to the resident, undergraduate students of medical college, and basic sciences student like working or reading and studying in the Department of Pakistan Institute of Community Ophthalmology.
Well, before going to explain strabismus or to discuss strabismus, I would like to say a few points which you have to meditate for yourself for all the cases, which is the task which is given to you. So you have to go at their very baseline steps. That should be introduction of yourself and introduction of the patient. While at the time of examination, you have to be at the level of the patient. Your position should be at the level of your patient. Go for gross inspection and an examination to look for any mass, lesion, edema, asymmetry of the face or body, head position, face turn, chin elevation, any neck scar. So with the gross torch examination and inspection, you have to look for that. After that, come for the gross visual acuity. So close the one eye and check the gross visual acuity with the counting finger, and then the other eye.
Red reflex and pupillary reaction are much more important in your form or list that you have to examine in all patient.
Go for Hirschberg test or corneal reflex test, which give you the obvious appearance of the eye positioning and alignment, the iris color, eye color, and the rest of the eyelid examination, which gives you the gross abnormality regarding that. So these few steps should be in all cases of ophthalmology are the task which will be given to you. You have to go through that.
Write and form a checklist for all these things that should be in your hand, and you have to do for all cases, which will be helpful in your exam and in your clinic.
For the detailed examination or investigation of the patient with strabismus, we have to know about few baseline terminologies regarding this strabismus. So strabismus is an misalignment of the visual axis of both eyes. The both eyes are not working together. Now come to orthophoria. It is an aligned eye or aligned visual axis is called orthophoria. The strabismus will classify on the basis of fusion, consistency, laterality, committancy, direction, and age of the onset. On the basis of fusion status, so the latent strabismus or squint, also called heterophoria. So the visual axes are directed toward the fixation point but deviate on dissociation. Or the latent squint is defined that there is a squint, but it's covered by the strong fusion of the patient. Manifest heterotropia is in a fusion mechanism that cannot direct visual axis on fixation point, so the squint are obvious while examination. So that squint is not covered by the fusion, then it's become prominent, and it's call it manifest strabismus or manifest squint. On the basis of consistency, it may be intermediate or constant. In intermediate deviation, the squint is present in a specific condition like fixation distance, fatigability, weakness, or some diseases that it may present at that very time. While in constant, the deviation is present all the time. It is also classified on the basis of laterality fixation, that it may be unilateral or alternative. So in a unilateral strabismus, the deviation is present in one eye constantly, because it is usually, especially because of the poor vision, like dense amblyopia. So the one eye is always almost fixate, and the disease eye is deviated. While in the alternative case, the fixation switch off from one eye to the another, and that's the vision usually good in this very patient, and that's we define as an alternative strabismus. Now the other classification is also could be defined on the basis of fixating eye, that in a various deviation or various direction. So it may be committed, the amount of deviation is the same in all direction of gaze, while incommittent define that the variable amount of deviation which is in a gaze depend. So the deviation is different in a different gaze position, while in committent the deviation is the same in all direction of gaze. On the basis of direction of deviation is classified as an iso deviation, convergence squint, exo deviation, or divergent squint or strabismus, hypo or hyper deviation, vertical strabismus.
And look for the cyclotorsion, that whether the torsion is encyclotorsion or excyclotorsion. So the encyclotorsion is the rotation of the globe toward the nasal side, while in excyclotorsion the rotation of the globe on the temporal side is defined as an excyclotorsion.
Age-based classification of the strabismus is either congenital or acquired. The squint is present at the time of birth or after birth, and different age groups. The strabismus is usually common at the pediatric age group, while it may occur in the adult also. Come to the etiology or underlying cause of the strabismus. So there are different causes which may lead to development of the strabismus or squint. So if you disturb the binocular vision during the developmental period, so it may lead to strabismus. And many factors are can cause or lead to develop strabismus, like hereditary, refractive error, neurological defects, and mechanical defects. The main contributory factors are the hereditary. People with the parents or sibling having a strabismus are more likely to develop strabismus. It may either be and refractive error. People who have a significant amount of refractive error may lead to strabismus. The neurological defect can cause strabismus, which may be because of the which can be due to brain damage in pediatric age group, like birth trauma or a premature delivery. And in mechanical effects, the exodeviation may be associated with conditions like hypertelorism or corneofacial dystosis. With the hypertelorism and craniofacial dystosis, I would like to have a few comments regarding the pseudostrabismus. So the pseudostrabismus or the strabismus where the visual axis is aligned but it appears as in a squint, like the broad nasal bridge and narrow interpupillary distance, that may give a false appearance of the strabismus. So you have to exclude the false or pseudostrabismus before going to diagnose the true underlying cause of the strabismus. The pseudostrabismus should also be excluded before examination to think about the broad nasal or flat nasal bridge, epicanthal fold, or narrow pupillary distance. So these should also be excluded. That patient should not have a pseudostrabismus. Look at the picture in this very slide. We have a straight eye at the primary position, but if you cover the one eye, so the undercover eye is getting deviate and relax. So the cover, we break the fusion of this patient, so the under cover eye get deviated. So we call, and the eye goes toward the nasal side, and where you remove the cover, the eye took place at a primary position, so it's come from the nasal side towards outside temporal side, so we call it esophoria. When the eye's undercover is go in and you remove the cover and the eye took place for a primary position or fixation from inward to outward, so we call it esophoria. Now look at the and this slide, the normal one, the visual axis or the eyes are aligned, so it is normal orthophoric, while in the esotropia the eye goes in toward the nasal side, so the terminology we use esotropia for that. If the eye goes outward or squinting outward or deviated outward, we call it exotropia. If the eyes turn downward, then we call it hypotropia, or when the eyes turns up, then we call it hypertropia. If the eyes turns inside in a rotatory form, we call encyclotorsion, while when it rotate outward, so we call it excyclotorsion. Now come to the history after the knowing that basic terminologies. So we are going to have a detailed history of this very patient. So age of the onset is very important, and the documentation that we have to know the prematurity or the birth history and all the presentation, like infantile esotropia is much more common at the age of 6 months. The direction of deviation, whether it is inward or outward, the deviation you have to ask about the patient. And then which eye is involved, whether one eye or both eyes are alternative, I mean whether it is alternative, whether the eye are deviated all the time or sometime, and we have to ask about the diplopia, double vision, that whether is there any double vision or not? If yes, then what type of double vision patient have? It is in a vertical deviation, horizontal deviation, or a torsional deviation. It is present all the time, or it is comes on and off, or there is some association like near vision work, fatigability, or weakness. We have to know about the diplopia history, double vision. Now come to the mode of onset, that whether the squint is suddenly came or gradually, or there is some precipitating factors regarding like weakness, fatigability, or some diseases which may, after the sickness and weakness, may lead to strabismus. And we have to know about the type of deviation. So ask in history that what type of deviation is that, and is there. I mentioned earlier that whether the strabismus or the squint is present continuously, or it's come on and off, so static, or it's come on and off. So we have to know about the whether it is a constant squint or intermittent. History ask about the photophobia, ask about the asthenopia, the prior treatment, previous history of glasses, occlusion, prism, any medication, drops, and surgery. In a surgery, it is very important to ask about the what type of surgery patient had, like squint surgery previously had been performed, retinal detachment surgery, and especially external tamponade application, or glaucoma implant, so that may lead to strabismus, this surgery. And the local surgery by the injection, direct trauma, the medication may lead to trauma to the globe and lead to strabismus.
And family history is very important again, because strabismus or squint runs in family, and lazy eye or amblyopia. So in family we have to ask about strabismus and lazy eye or amblyopia. And again we have to know about the previous medical history about the birth weight or the prematurity or developmental disorder, neurological disorder about the patient, and some systemic medication or allergy to drugs. We have to ask about all these things, and socio-economic status of the patient at the end.
In a history about the strabismus, we also have to know about the long-standing early morning headache with nausea and vomiting, which may lead to raised intracranial pressure because of the, we have to know and ask about the raised intracranial pressure, which may lead to strabismus. Also about the hearing loss, tinnitus, and vertigo. Now come to the examination and inspection of the patient. If we go stepwise after the history, then it will be easy for us to diagnose and to help us in the treatment. So in inspection, we have to look for the eyelid fissure, like we have to know about the ptosis, Mongolian eyelid fissure, or anti-Mongolian, exophthalmos or inophthalmos, legophthalmos, closure of one eye in bright light, and the epicanthal fold. And then we will go for head position, that whether it is head tilt and facial symmetry or asymmetry about the fixation preference, whether it is alternative or unilateral, and again consistency or deviation of the whether it is a constant or a variable, and looking for the nystagmus. So these are the few points at this chart we have to be remember to know about the things which we have to look for that. Your suggestions and comments will be required and will be highly appreciated.